Hi everyone, how are you? How are we doing today? Happy Friday. The weekend's just about here. Let me just adjust this so there's not that glare coming in. So today we're talking about how to finally overcome some binge eating and how or why willpower is really not going to help you, okay? So I'm Kelsie, Michaud, health and life coach, and I help people to end emotional eating so they can lose that excess weight and just feel absolutely amazing in their body with no deprivation, starvation, or willpower required. So, have you ever said to yourself, I've tried everything imaginable, but I just don't have the willpower to stop binge eating? These are the words that I hear, when somebody is they're absolutely at their wit's end. They've had enough. And, I've also heard it so many times, like, if only I had self-control, then I could stop binge eating. And this is where we have it all wrong, okay? When it comes to binge eating, it's not about willpower. I really believe that it makes it really difficult because we live in a society where self-control and just being perfect are they're so highly looked upon. And our culture sends us these messages, for example, we need to exercise regularly, even when we don't want to, right? We need to practice healthy eating all of the time. They're also sending us messages like we need to perform really well at our job. We need to be the best, mother or father or sister or brother or daughter or son. And we need to follow, all of the beauty standards. These are all of the messages that our society sends to us. So if you're coming on, please say hello so I know you're here. I'd love to say hi to you. And also if you catch the replay, #replay, so I know you were here as well. And I can also say hello to you. And if you have any questions, just pop it right in the comments for me so I can answer them for you. Okay, so with all of these like standards that society puts on us, it's no wonder that we feel like this really deep sense of shame and self-loathing. And we feel it in the moments when we aren't practicing what we think as our own concept of what willpower should be. And without willpower, we think that we'll never meet all the expectations that society puts on us. So a predisposition to binge eating or this compulsive overeating that happens to a lot of us is not about willpower, okay? It can be a result of a number of other things, all right? And a number of other things are our genetics, our family genetics, or the way our family has modeled eating, growing up for us, or just something that self-soothes us, or just the configuring of that reward pathway in our brain, okay? These can all be a number of things that result in that, end up turning us and leading us to overeating or binging. And with all of these factors, they're certainly not working for us, right? They're working against us. So how can we think that willpower is going to be there for us when we actually have that urge to binge, okay? And that's a lot of pressure. That's a lot of pressure to put on yourself. And, you don't have to have an eating disorder to binge eat. It's actually considered normal eating behavior. And I used to binge eat, and I did it where I didn't even realize that I was a binge eater. I would restrict, I was one of those people, I'd restrict all week, and then come the weekend, and it's like, yeah, weekend's here, time for a free-for-all, time to eat everything I restricted and dreamed about all week long. And so I restricted and binged for so many years. I lived that way, and I didn't even realize that I was considered a binge eater. I never put a label on it. I never really thought about it, because when you're in the moment, you're not thinking about it. You're just doing it, right? So that was my biggest struggle to get through, and I've worked through it. And it's been amazing, and I've turned to more intuitive eating. I eat more intuitively now, and it's been a huge game changer for me. And now that I've done it and I'm successful at it, and I'm so happy, And now I teach it to my clients as well. And it's so nice to be able to help other people through what I've gone through, because I've been there and I know how it feels and I know what it's like. And it's not a fun place to be in when you're restricting and you're feeling hungry all the time and you're hangry and you're miserable. And then you go crazy, and when you do, then you feel awful, you feel shame, you feel guilt, you feel sick, and then you can't wait to get back on the wagon again. And then that vicious cycle just starts all over again. It just keeps going around and around, and it's not somewhere that you want to live. You don't want to live in that circle or that cycle of life, okay? So, hey, Patricia, how are you? Thank you for coming on. So like I said, you don't have to have an eating disorder to be somebody who binge eats or overeats. But a binge is actually defined as eating more than a typical person would eat in a short period of time. Well, of course, feeling that loss of control. So how could we not feel an urge to binge from time to time? It's normal. It happens. We live in a culture where we're surrounded by food all the time, right? And when we're exposed to all of these constant food cues, like you drive past maybe 5 different fast food restaurants on your way home from work or on your way home from out shopping, or you're watching the commercials on TV that are all about food, or it's everywhere. You go somewhere, even at work. Sometimes you walk into the break room, and there's some food on the table, and it makes this a lot harder for us to actually practice self-control, especially when some of us already have this predisposition to overeating. So what do you think you should do to change your binge eating habits? What do you think you can do, or any kind of behavioral change, really, for that matter? What do you think you should do to be able to change those binge eating habits? Hey, Brian, how are you? Thanks for coming on. So here's the thing, and it's the most important thing, okay? Your environment is key here, all right? Take a look at when and why you actually binge eat, okay? Because when I work with people with binge eating disorder, I see them living in environments that tend to just promote overeating. So for example, binging often happens later in the day, right? Kind of towards the evening time, after a long day. And a lot of times the person happens to be alone, and they're sitting there and they're watching TV, and they're on their phone or their tablet or whatever. And that's when we tend to mindlessly eat. And not only do we eat mindlessly, but we mindlessly overeat because we're not paying attention. And then you get to a point where you're just like, oh, the bag's empty, or the carton's empty, or oh, what happened? I ate more than I realized, or more than I should have. So what you want to do is actually set up your environment so that you can just increase success in being able to stop binge eating, okay? So you're probably thinking, okay, so where do I actually start with this? Well, start by asking yourself some really, really important questions, all right? What does it look like when I binge? Okay, think about that. What does it look like? What am I feeling? What am I feeling before I binge? What am I feeling during the binge? And what am I feeling after the binge? Okay, it's all about your feelings. Tap into that. Tune into your body. Your body is sending you all of these signals. It's a matter of just listening to it. It's a matter of slowing down and listening to what your body needs and what it actually wants. Because a lot of times we really just ignore the signals our body's sending us, or we just override them. So you can also ask yourself, okay, what triggers me to binge? Think about that. What is your trigger? Okay, figure that out first. Or how do I typically overeat? And where does this happen? These are all really important questions to stop and ask yourself, because once you've been able to answer these questions, then at that point, there's several things that you can actually do, okay? So let's say that maybe watching TV is a trigger for you, all right? Maybe you start by changing this behavior, okay? Eat at a table. Sit down with an actual plate, all right? And sit in a real chair, not standing up at the counter or in front of a screen, right? As you eat, be really mindful about it. When you're being mindful, you're slowing down and you're taking it all in. You're using your senses while you're eating the food, and this helps you to prevent that numbing out of that mindless eating, which again, I said, often leads to that overeating. So making these small changes, like really small little changes, and structuring your environment in this way can really help you to promote just eating your meals without binging. It's a small little change, but it makes a big difference, okay? So doing this actually repeatedly can increase your chances of success in the long run, because the more you do it, then it turns into a habit for you. So then you're creating this nice healthy habit for yourself where you're not mindlessly eating anymore. You're actually eating mindfully, and you're slowing down, and you're not overeating like you were in the past. And think about how that's going to add up for you, okay? That's going to be a huge success for you. And another beneficial practice that you can help to reduce your binge eating episodes is to really take a look at like this data, so to speak, like before and after you binge. So start asking yourself all of these questions, and like, what happened before I started binge eating? Like, what actually led up to it? Did something trigger me? What was I feeling before, during, and after this binge? And did something happen today that made me more vulnerable to my emotions? Okay, so those are things you want to tap into and ask yourself, okay, how did I eat this meal or snack? Did I eat it mindfully, or did I just kind of just plow through it or not even think about it? Things like that. And where, like, ask yourself, where did I eat, and what else was I doing at that time? Was I actually sitting down at a table with an actual plate, or was I just sitting on the couch with a bag or a carton, and now that carton's empty and I'm wondering where the food went and I wish I didn't eat it all? Or did you actually sit down at a table and eat mindfully and slow down and take in all of the aromas and the textures and the scents and the taste? Hey Deb, how are you? Thanks for coming on. So you can take all of that information, okay, that's your data right there. Take all of that information and use it to actually help you in the future, and with no judgment. Because remember, we're always being kind to ourselves, all right? So the thing is, we have to remember that even when we're being really diligent about structuring our environment and noticing, what might trigger us, what might actually trigger that binge, we still may binge on occasion, and that's okay. We're human, it's normal, okay? Practicing self-compassion on a regular basis is so, so important, because beating ourselves up is only likely to lead to more overeating and binging, okay? And that's going to make us only have to try to cope even more. We're going to have to figure out how to cope. We're going to overeat even more, because now we have to cope with the stress that we just put on ourselves from overeating and binging, okay? So that's why it's so important to practice self-compassion and self-care and self-love and be kind to yourself, okay? Because the thing, like, when I work with people, I am so blessed, because what has really sparked my passion for this field is just the incredible people I get to work with. Every day I am just so inspired by those people who they walk the walk and they make the small changes to transform right before me. And I'm so grateful to be able to watch these individuals just work diligently on their goals and see them like truly transform their lives. And I'm just so honored and humbled on a daily basis, which is why it's just so important for me to speak out to those who are struggling and let you know that there is a way to work towards a more meaningful life so that you can reach your goals. Okay, so if you have any questions about the content I just covered, or any questions about your own personal health and wellness goals, I'm happy to chat. You can reach out to me. I do complimentary consultations, and that's where we can jump on the phone for about 30 minutes or so, and we can talk about where you're at now and any struggles that you may be having, and how I can take you from where you are now to where you'd like to go. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. I'm happy to answer your questions for you. But if not, right now, I'm going to hop off, and I hope you all have a wonderful day and have a beautiful weekend, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Bye, guys.